the magic strains of the pipe organ, spread out in concentric circles. On both sides of the Virgin Road, guests in colorful robes filled the seats, and the whole ceremony was filled with solemn dignity. In terms of formality, it was as perfect as a duke's wedding. However, there was no wedding-like joy or bustle to be seen anywhere. It would be more appropriate to call it a funeral than a wedding. Both the groom's guests and the bride's guests have dark faces. I have to walk into the middle of this frozen ceremony and stand next to a man who will kill me.
The priest, who did not know whether he had come to officiate at a wedding or to attend a funeral mass, ordered me entrance grimly.
I had practiced all day yesterday, rehearsing in my head, but I couldn't help feeling nervous. I walked slowly forward, kicking the hem of my dress with my toes, just as I had practiced with all my strength to prevent an accidental fall. The skirt I've been wearing is not a problem at this wedding, but I know that my breasts are big and beautiful, but they are too exposed. It's too much even if it is for a wedding. This is the first time I have worn it, and I think something is missing to cover my chest. As if I was not the only one who thought so. The glances that looked at Edith contained negative emotions: disgust, contempt, disrespect, or lust. Except for him. Of course, he didn't look at me. To him, I must be like a curse or punishment given to him. I bent on my knees and bowed my head slightly towards the priest, to show my courtesy, and breathed a sigh of relief. The priest nodded his head indifferently, and began to recite a prayer of blessing. Well, I think I will never be able to create the happy or warm future with this man, who has become my husband now. In this situation, knowing that my husband is going to slit my throat, it's extremely unclear whether I'll be able to get a happy or warm family, or a bright future. But there is no way for me to deny or avoid the situation. When I opened my eyes, I was in the body of a woman who was going to get married in a week. How crazy the process was. Misfortune never comes alone. That's what happened today. Office real life, exploited by irresponsible seniors. And young Yoon, who had done all kinds of bad things just because she was a senior who came a year ahead of me, blamed me for her own mistakes. Manager Park, who printed out a messy Excel spreadsheet, gave me a harsh look and nagged me for a long time before going back. I looked at Young Yoon with a confused expression on my face, but she sat down in her seat as if tired without even looking at me. My co-worker cheered me up via Messenger, but it didn't give me much strength. Maybe it was because I saw they were going to buy coffee with Young Yoon at the end of lunchtime. I was in a bad mood, but this is such a common thing that I thought it was just bad luck, and I deserved it. It was Friday, and I had a date with my boyfriend after work. But it wasn't until after work that I got a message from my boyfriend cancelling our dating schedule. Aside from not being able to see him all weekend, I was upset to hear that my boyfriend, who had been suffering from overtime lately, had to work through the weekend. If I hadn't stopped by X Mall, the meeting place today, I wouldn't have seen my boyfriend holding hands with another woman. I stared blankly at their backs as they walked away, and only after they were completely out of sight did I take out my phone and text him, even when I witnessed my boyfriend cheating on me with my own eyes. Strangely, it didn't seem like my hands were shaking or I was going to cry. I wasn't even mad. Perhaps I was unconsciously expecting such a breakup with him. He is a sincere man who grew up in a wealthy family and works for a fairly large company. He is a good-looking man, moderately tall, kind, and educated. And like me, who comes from a poor family and tries hard not to show that I have no money. He is a man who is comfortable with a simple lifestyle. I was grateful that such a man treated me kindly, but at the time, I couldn't help thinking, until when will this go on? And that when today is. Thinking about buying Rofan novels and reading them while lying in bed made me feel a little better. It's my pleasure to read Rofan, romance fantasy novels, before going to bed. Even if I don't have enough pocket money, I have to open one free chapter a day, or wait for it. When I thought that I could save money to meet an imaginary man, and pay for some novels in the cart, my steps back home became lighter in an instant. That it was just my mistake. That I thought the bad things of the day ended there. My older brother was waiting in front of the door to my studio, next to the steep stairs in a shabby apartment. As usual, he asked for money to gamble. Of course, I refused because I didn't have any money anymore. I was deafened by my brother's sudden shout. But I was more anxious about whether there was someone next door or maybe listening to this. Under the pretext of giving me who had leukemia, a bone marrow transplant 13 years ago, my older brother always shamelessly asked me for money. I didn't know how much I thought it would have been convenient if I had died without a bone marrow transplant at that time. Even more so today, I tend to forget bad things quickly, but I'm tired of this situation repeating itself. My brother slapped me on the cheek. There was a flash of light in front of my eyes, and my ears were deaf. I felt a strange sensation as if I was floating in the air. Oh, there are stairs behind me. The moment I thought that, immediately after, I rolled down the stairs and my head hit somewhere hard at the end of the stairs. That was my last memory as a Korean woman in my last 20s. Chosunah. I felt as if I had been asleep for a long time. I slowly regained consciousness and realized that I was not dead. I opened my eyes, thinking that I was in a hospital, that I saw a scene that could never be a hospital. It was a room similar to the Palace of Versailles that I had seen on the internet. Besides, I didn't feel any pain in my body, which should have been broken or at least badly bruised. I even felt more energetic than usual. When I got up from the bed, thick reddish-brown hair flowed down my shoulders. After suffering from leukemia, my hair was thin, and I had never dyed it. With fine hair in my hands, I was stunned, and someone knocked on the door. The door opened and a young woman with a slightly scary look, who identified herself as Sophia, came in with a copper wash basin on something like a tray. Her clothes looked like maid's clothes that cosplayers often wear. Sophia told me to get ready, because the person she called Master called me to come to his room. I washed my face, combed my hair, and wore a silk dress by the woman without knowing what was happening. As I stood in front of the mirror to check my makeup, I realized that things were going very strangely. My appearance in the mirror was so unfamiliar. In the mirror, there is a Westerner with red hair, light brown eyes, white skin, and a glamorous body. She's pretty, but she looks a little scrawny. It's a good impression for someone who is going to ask for a refund. And in the meantime, someone's memories slowly began to flow into my mind. Edith Riegelhoff is a 22-year-old noblewoman who is to be married a week later. It was strange to have the memory of a noblewoman in the minds of people living in the 21st century, but it was even stranger that her name was not unfamiliar. I remember it, Edith Riegelhoff. It's the name of the villainess in the Rofan novel I finished yesterday. It was a novel titled I Refuse Your Obsession, with a cider narration. I must have lost my mind. Not the female lead, but the villainess. No, I possessed it before she became a villainess. The maid, Sophia, spoke curtly telling me to wait until I got permission to meet her master, and left without hearing my reply. I immediately recalled the contents of the novels, trying to calm my pounding heart. I must pull myself together at this point. I was taken aback, but fortunately, I was able to clear my head quickly. It was a novel that I enjoy reading, so, fortunately, I have a lot of memories of it. In this novel, the female lead is Lizé Sinclair, and the male lead is Cliff Ludwig. Lizé Sinclair, the female lead of the novel, is a bright, innocent, and beautiful girl like a goddess of spring. However, she has handicaps that exist for all protagonists. She is the illegitimate daughter of Count Sinclair and the maid. The Count has put the beautiful Lizé on the family register, thinking that one day he will be able to take advantage of her. But his family disapproves and harasses her. As the persecution in the family intensifies, the Duke and Duchess of Ludwig, who have come to stay at the Sinclair mansion for a time, take her with them to the Ludwigs' mansion, where she meets Cliff and Killian, the second male lead. Cliff and Killian are brothers from the Ludwig family, who fall in love with the same woman at the same time and try hard to win Lizé's heart, regardless of her feelings. They give Lizé what she wants to confront, which threatens her without her knowledge. She is the object of their obsession. However, like any naive and good-natured female lead, she shrewdly solves the cases that befall her, without noticing that the love the two men shower on her is slightly excessive. Eventually, she marries Cliff, the eldest son of the Ludwig family, and becomes the Duchess of Ludwig, and the Sinclair family, who persecuted her, regret it and are punished. It's a common plot, but it's such an interesting story. And Edith Riegelhoff is one of Lizé's many enemies. Ludwig's second son, Killian, who always also loves Lizé, is forced into a marriage of convenience for the sake of the family. The Riegelhoffs are villains, who pretend to support the imperial faction and secretly join the opposition faction, to overthrow the Ludwigs. However, unlike Killian who hates Edith, Edith falls in love with Killian at first sight and she is blinded by jealousy, by Killian's affection and love for Lizé. Edith does everything to kill Lizé because of that. In addition, while acting as a spy for Count Riegelhoff, she conspires with her maid Sophia to steal internal documents and secrets from the Ludwig family. Of course, Edith's evil deed is discovered by Lizé, and in the end, the Riegelhoff family falls together. She dies at the hands of her husband, Killian. She is an insignificant villain. I remember some bad comments saying that she was the perfect enemy of woman composition full of jealousy. Anyway, apart from that confrontational composition, I couldn't understand Edith the whole time I was reading the novel. She has a pretty face, a nice body, a healthy, good family, and lots of money. But why is she so obsessed with her husband? If I were her, I would give up on him and live happily. I knew very well that people in love often make irrational decisions, but it took me too long to understand because I didn't have enough money. My wish is to live without worrying about money, or worrying about health. My family was not rich, and I even had leukemia when I was young. Although I received a bone marrow transplant from my brother, and was declared cured, I was not completely healthy because of the strong drugs and chemotherapy. On top of that, my gambling-addicted brother who had to move between jobs, without even finishing high school, robbed my money under the pretext of repaying the favor for the bone marrow transplant, and my parents had neither the strength nor the will to stop him. So, love was a luxury for me. According to Maslow's 5-step needs theory, I was in a very weak position, barely meeting my physiological needs. Still, the reason I had a boyfriend was because I still needed someone to lean on. I needed someone to protect me. Maybe, I hoped that someone like the male lead in a Rofan novel would save me. Of course, it won't happen. Anyway, that made me envy Edith more than Lizé, and I was frustrated by her choice. Why doesn't Edith throw away her lover for a man who loves another woman? If Edith had just given up her love, she could live a comfortable life. Edith doesn't know how happy it is not to worry about money, and to be healthy. Why does she desire anything else? I never thought that God would give me the role of Edith. The saying that words become seeds doesn't exist for no reason. Wait, come to think of it, did my wish come true? I transmigrated into a novel and possessed a villainess. If it was someone who didn't know anything, it would be overwhelming. But this was a dream situation for me, who had mastered all the cliched Rofan novels. My bewilderment gradually turned to joy. The memories of Edith Riegelhoff hadn't completely come back to my mind yet, but they were slowly coming back, which was much better than starting without knowing anything. There will be a dinner this evening with the two families, who will be joined in matrimony. It seems that God took pity on me and gave me the memory of the original character, which is rare in most Rofan novels. Just in time, Sophia returned and told me that I could go now. I took a deep breath and made my way to Count Riegelhoff's office, as Edith's memory told me to. Entered the room and greeted my father excitedly. It's weird to call a stranger father, but it's not hard to be an idiot with a lot of money. Even if you ask me to act cute, I can do it as much as you want. However, Count Riegelhoff's reaction was quite different from what I expected. His gaze, looking up and down as if trying to find my fault, was like the gaze of Manager Park at my workplace. And only then did the memory of Edith's situation in the Riegelhoff family come to my mind. I didn't remember all the full content of the novel. I refuse your obsession that Edith is an arrogant villainess because she grew up only finally. However, according to the memory that just popped into my head, that was just a mere fake image to deceive the world. Edith Riegelhoff was nothing more than a puppet of the Count. He dressed Edith in fancy dresses and expensive jewelry to flaunt the family's wealth and show off the honor of the family. With her arrogant manner, Edith's beauty, voluptuous body, and flamboyant style were all billboards for the Riegelhoff family. In reality, Edith was a physically and emotionally abused daughter who desperately wanted to be loved by her parents and brother. As I was still in a state of shock, Count Riegelhoff spoke in a sharp tone and warned me not to make a mistake at dinner with the Ludwig family later. I didn't know what he was talking about, but I had to pretend that I did. Count Riegelhoff, who had been writing tonight's scenario for a long time, that he wanted me to enter the family by bringing several servants of the Riegelhoff family as his spies, did not pay attention to my answer and started to curse Duke Ludwig. Only then did I begin to understand why Count Riegelhoff wanted to destroy the Ludwigs so badly. The current Duke of Ludwig and Count Riegelhoff had been rivals since childhood. However, Count Ludwig, who was less powerful than Count Riegelhoff at the time, was awarded the dukedom after his great exploits in the war. Count Riegelhoff believed that the dukedom was stolen from the Riegelhoffs. Okay, well, that's a mental victory. I get it. But why do I have to be the scapegoat for this revenge? According to my newly formed memories, Edith was going to marry Duke Ludwig's son as bait to hide Count Riegelhoff's dark intentions. And I knew very well that if anything went wrong, I would be the first to lose my head. It's felt like I was going to burst into tears. Why is my family like this in my past and present life? But I held it together. This wasn't a family where a daughter could cry and be comforted. Still, it wasn't all hopeless. In a week, I'll be out of this house, and I'll find a way to live in the Duchy of Ludwig, the main setting of the original story. I made up my mind to live as Edith Riegelhoff and prepared myself for the dinner between the two families.